Well, hello everybody and welcome back. It is Jeff again coming to you with Minecraft Survivor Recap. Wait, no. This is the real Survivor Recap coming to you from the Minecraft Vanilla server. That's it. Put it all together. Let's get this done. I missed last week's recap, unfortunately, because I just got too busy and couldn't do it. So we are going to mix in 2 episodes together, and we're going to mix them in pretty fast. I'm not going to go into super amounts of detail. I got nothing written down. We're going straight up from memory. I will be honest, I couldn't even tell you what the challenges were at this time because the challenges themselves were not super important. I don't remember what was for reward, but what I do know about the reward is that still it was nothing. You got whisked away from camp with a group of people. Hold on. All right, folks, I'm back. I actually had to leave. Wanted to go refresh myself on what the challenges were because as I started speaking, I remembered there were some important things in these challenges, and I wanted to go refresh what they were. But my last thought that I was saying is, yet again, this challenge, the reward challenge in both of these involved getting something either right then or back at camp. And they are down to, what, 6 or 7 people at this point, and they've never had one of those challenges where the winner gets to pick like 2 people and they go off on some random excursion. And that, for one, confuses me because is the budget for Survivor really getting cut and they can't afford to do that stuff anymore? But for 2, that was the time that you really did get to pull people away from your tribe to try to make new alliances. It's when that stuff, all the conniving and stuff happened. So I'm really upset that we're not seeing anything like that this season as of yet, because I really want to see some alliances start switching around, because that makes the game super interesting, in my opinion at least. And good, there's a bed over here. And yeah, I thought that was interesting. But either way, in the first episode of this week, so episode 9, basically the guys are all on their own because there's just Ty, Scott, and Jason against the world is pretty much what it turns out to be. And the first reward challenge, they're teams of 4. There's 2 teams of 4. So there's 9 left at the beginning of season, or episode 8, or excuse me, episode 9. So the reward challenge, you get to choose your own team instead of doing a schoolyard pick. And I don't know, it's interesting because Jeff even says, like, instead of doing a schoolyard pick, we're going to have you guys choose your own team as long as everybody can agree, which is really weird knowing the situations. I don't know if he did it to get, like, to get more views or more like craziness going on or what. It's kind of cool though. So you know for a fact that nobody wants to work with the guys, so the guys are going to be working together. But that leaves Joe also, who is not part of the guys, he's more part of the girls, but that leaves 5 women and Joe on the side. They got to choose a team of 4 as well as make somebody's going to sit out in the challenge. So what happens is Julia decides that she is going to go over with the guys. Now, some of the girls are like, what? It's like, why is she doing that? Here's the deal with this. Somebody has to go over there. You know that. So somebody stepping up to do so is not a big deal. You got a couple options that you can have. You can step up to go do that to ensure that the guys lose. You can step up to do that just to get the challenge over with, or you can step up to do that to make some changes. Now, Julia, in my opinion, from what they showed, and you know, this is kind of weird because usually what they show would make it look like it was super fast. It didn't look like she immediately was like, oh, I'll go to the guys. She was just like, okay, I guess I'll go over with the guys if somebody has to. But the girls were like, she immediately jumped on that. That's a little bit suspicious now, isn't it? And I was thinking, not really. Granted, she even admits that she's trying to do something with it. And I got to give that girl props. She's playing an interesting game. She's going to try to mix things up here. But she easily could have gone over there and tried to sabotage them and shown the women, like, look, I'm willing to sacrifice myself so you guys can get an award, but so they don't, we can make this happen. And the first part of the challenge was actually everybody getting in on ropes that were all tangled up together. They're clipped in and they have to work together to untangle. She literally could have sat down and they would have lost the challenge. She could have just been like, I'll sit here and wait for the other team to finish because you guys can't do anything without me. It would have caused an interesting camp life. It wouldn't have let her get in closer with the guys like she wanted to, but it was a strategy that could have been done. So Other women, don't get freaking mad at her for jumping at the chance to go work with the guys. You, if you really wanted them to lose, why didn't you jump at the chance to do it to sabotage them? You ever think about that? You know what? I'm sick of them complaining just because somebody else, like, oh, look, somebody finally stepped up and said that they'd go be on the guys' team so we can get this challenge rolling. That's suspicious, as opposed to being like, hey, I could have taken advantage of something that I did not, and they should have, because guess what happens? The guys and Julia win. But they win like Chinese takeout or something. That Chinese takeout at their camp. So again, they just got stuff delivered over to them instead of getting to go anywhere, which again, like I said, is something I am not necessarily a fan of. I would rather they get, you know, to go somewhere and do something crazy, but that is not how, that is not how it happened. So either way, guys plus Julia win. Julia starts working with them to try to say, hey guys, you know, I kind of want to make some changes. So that's kind of interesting. So go to the reward challenge, and the reward challenge is, it was domino stack. So this one is really interesting. It's domino stacking. You have to run between these like balance beam thingies and go, or these tripwire ropes essentially, and go stack dominoes. The tripwire ropes are connected directly to the place that you're stacking the dominoes on, and so if you basically touch one, your whole thing comes crashing down. And you can only do one at a time, but you have to go out, stack your dominoes so that when you push them, they will go to the end, and the last one falls into like this big bucket thing that's there, and like I can't remember if it rings a gong or if it like sets something on fire or what it was, but that signifies the winner. Now, a couple things about this challenge that I found really interesting. It was one, when you got some people who were able to actually push their stack of dominoes, it wasn't just about if their spacing was off, which some of these challenges are. They space them too wide because they want to do it faster and the domino doesn't hit the next one. This one, it was weird. You pushed it and it made the whole contraption like shake back and forth, and it would actually shake some of the dominoes off, or it would shake one to the side instead of forward, and therefore it wouldn't hit the next thing. But then you have to start over, and that's almost like that's really weird, because that's not even a normal fault of your domino stacking abilities, which I would think that would have been a challenge based on that, but it wasn't. So there was a decent amount of skill, or excuse me, of luck that went along with the skill of getting through the area with the tripwire area without getting it. So I found that interesting. The other thing I also found interesting, and I said it at the very beginning, right when the challenge started, when I was watching with Julia, and I said, why don't they just start at the end instead of coming, like stacking their dominoes from the beginning and going to the end? Why not do the hard part first, where you're basically gonna get the stuff at the very end first, so as you actually get close to getting it done, instead of having the whole way to go with your nerves going crazy because you're getting all the way to the end of this super long thing, why don't you start at that end, so as your nerves start to get crazier and crazier as you're getting closer and closer, you have less room to actually have to go. And we were both looking at each other and like, well, maybe you're not allowed to do that. But then in the middle of the challenge, when things would stop, like would fall down, what people would do is they'd go like replace stuff in the middle, and like they were working from wherever they wanted to work from, it seemed, yet nobody started at the end. So I wish I knew the official rule on if they could have started at the end or not. There's probably some highlights or something. I haven't watched any of the highlights this season, which is unfortunate, because the highlights are really, really good. Part of it though is because the only character I really, really, really like in this season is Ty. And I think Julia's growing on me a little bit more because she is, just she's more of a player than anybody else that I can see. But other than that, like, not really many people I like. Whereas in the previous seasons where I would watch all of the like recaps and stuff, there was a lot of people I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, cool things are happening. This is fantastic. Not as much this season, so I don't watch them. But either way, I thought that would be interesting. And what ends up happening at the end of this one is Julia does end up winning, which is good because of the stunt that she pulled before with the reward challenge. She is like, people are kind of against her. They are a little bit worried about what she's going to do for the rest of the game, and they kind of are thinking about getting her out of there. She's not the only one that's thinking about getting out of there, though, because obviously they're targeting the guys, but some people were talking that Debbie is not everything that they want her to be, and that maybe they need to get rid of her now. So there's a lot of back and forth going on who they're going to get rid of. But which brings us to one of the greatest and worst tribal councils I have ever seen in Survivor history. With all of this stuff going on, Jason and Scott, in their arrogant mindsets, decide that, and it was, what they did, it was like hilarious and amazing all at the same time, but also so horrible because of the fact that they were talking and Jeff made some comment and Jason is like, Scott, why don't we just tell him what's going to happen here? And they just start going out. He pulls an idol out of his pocket and says, I have an idol. Ty's got an idol too. And basically, we're going to have all these idols and you guys can't do anything about it. Now, it is unclear at this point if anybody really knows or understands about the super idol besides the people who have physically held idols yet in the game. The super idol has been brought up, which I forgot to mention in the last recap. Ty's the one who brought it up. People looked so shocked because they'd never heard of this before. And so Ty was like deer in the headlights, like, oh shit, I spilled the beans. Obviously, people are going to know I have an idol because I just talked about the super idol. And he covers it up so well. I thought it was freaking amazing. He's just like, well, now I'm having like doubts and wondering if people are lying to me about these idols. Like, this is, wow, I've been deceived, and everybody believes him because Ty is such a believable guy. And I thought it was great. But Jason alludes to the fact that there's a super idol abilities, but without people really knowing. So I still can't tell if people know. Because he says something like, this is an idol, boom, idol, like, and he says it in a way that's kind of like bragging about having an idol, but at the same time, if you understand the subtext, that means boom, a super idol together. So, but it's unclear if anybody else actually knows this about the idols. But he basically lays the whole thing out on the line, which is hilarious because he lays it out on the line when people are already talking about getting rid of Debbie, and then people start talking about, you know, again, they go with like, oh, original plan, and then people are like, I thought there was only one plan, and like, nobody knows what's happening. You can tell who's in and out of the inner circle, but all this goes on, there's all this talk. Then there's the idol sharing, which is another part that I don't understand. Maybe they made the rules a little bit more specific in this season, and the fact that in order to use an idol, you have to give it to somebody and they have to accept it, or there's just a big show going on by the the Brawn, because they're just making a big show out of the fact that they have all these idols. I can't tell, because he was like, here you go, Scott. This is Jason talking. He's like, here you go, Scott. I will give you my idol. And Scott is like, I would accept your idol. And he's like, how about I just give it to Ty instead? And he hands the idol over to Ty. And he's like, Ty will hold on to it. So Ty's got both of them in his possession at this point. And I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, maybe it is the fact that they have to have idols in their possession together in order to be able to use them as a super idol. Because I still don't get that. Can you just hand them over when the vote is read to somebody else after they've been kicked out to make the super idol? Like, I still don't understand how the super idol can be put together. So Ty's got both of the idols at this point, and now their idols are known to everybody, and lo and behold, Debbie gets voted out. Because I'm not sure they had anything to worry about, and now they blew their cover. And I think they could have gotten a lot farther by not telling anybody. But granted, they didn't know that there was all this talk about Debbie going on. Even though Julia, I believe, knew about all this talk with Debbie. So I'm not clear on all the workings of that. Oh, I don't know. I got my boat. I need to sleep. Get out of this thing. So I'm not 100% clear on the whole workings of all that. But either way, I think they thought they were in trouble. It made a really cool and crazy tribal council, that's for sure. I've never seen anything like that before. I just think a lot of it was not needed to go the way that it went. But either way, Debbie, goodbye. Thank God is all I have to say about that. So that brings us to episode 10, which was the one this week. Episode 10 was almost as interesting. Obviously, it's going to have a little bit of differences. I did catch up on their challenges as well. The first one was a different take on something that they've done before. They've done these ones where you have to balance pots on a balance beam with 1 foot. You just push it down and you have to keep it level. And if you let your foot raise or lower too much, the pots are going to fall off. But they split it up and said, we're going to have 3 rewards for this challenge. You have to decide what reward you're going for, and then you're only competing against the people that are also going for that reward. So the first reward was the good old food. Who doesn't want a bacon cheeseburger and some french fries? But that's it, just food, just bacon cheeseburger and some french fries. Second reward is for love. The good old family letters from home, that you know my opinion on the letters from home. Fucking suck it up. You're on Survivor. You're almost at the end. You can last longer. Don't waste your time. You will read the letter later, or you will see that person later. So you're an idiot if you go for that, is my opinion. But anyways, there's that. And then there's the advantage. Don't know what it is, but it's the advantage. And of course, I would go for the advantage any day of the week. I was literally calling there'd be one person that went for the letters from home, because somebody's always dumb enough to go for the letters from home and drop everything that is important to them in the game to go read a letter from home that they could have waited fucking 10 more days before they go see that person in person. But well, I was thinking there'd be one person go for the letters from home. They're going to win by default. Everybody else, you're going for the advantage. Nobody's going to waste their time on going for the one cheeseburger and fries. Granted, it sounds good now, but your immediate needs, you're smarter than that. You know better than that. Oh, God, was I wrong. 2 people for the letters from home, 2 people for the food. I think it was 2 of each, and 3 for the advantage. I think that's how it broke down. Either way, it broke down in a way that I was definitely not expecting. And yeah. So in the end, one thing I was surprised at is I believe, I could be wrong on this and you can correct me, but I believe Joe went for letters from home. And I thought Joe would have to go for the advantage, because I think at some point he needs to like either contribute something or start to prepare to save himself. And I don't know if people are thinking about dragging Joe to the end at this point, because he's so useless. He'll never win when he gets to the end. But so I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not even that word, because that's the whoa shoot. Maybe that's the card he's trying to play. I thought in some previous seasons that people were so useless they would never win, but they actually won because the people hated the actual game players even more, because they made enemies to get there where they were at and chose the person who rode their coattails to win the $1 million. So I guess at this point in the game, it's not a bad decision not a bad spot for Joe to be in, because I don't think he can turn himself around and become like this hero that everybody wants to vote for. All he's got right now is hope the guy you go to the end with is somebody who they hate more than you. But either way, Julia wins the letters from home. Michelle wins the food, if I recall. And then it comes out to this big battle between Sydney and Ty for the advantage. And that is a battle. It's pretty amazing. Like, they both look... Well, Sydney looks rock solid. Ty wavers a little bit, but looks okay. I thought it was it... Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's who it was. Yeah. That's who it was. And out of nowhere, Sydney like freaking drops like an hour and something in. Like everybody else dropped it like 10 minutes or something like that. I think they made it to an hour and something in, and she's just out of nowhere. Boom! She was just like rock, boom, crash. She's dead. And Ty wins the immunity, the reward of the advantage, and he goes and gets his reward when they go back to camp. And yet again, just like a previous season, it's an extra vote that he can use up through when there's 5 players left. My assumption means he can use that extra vote on the 5 players going down to 4 tribal council. I hope that's what it means, not the one to get you down to 5. So I don't know how long it's going to take for him to use that, but either way. Lots of talk around the camp life. There's, Scott, Jason, and Ty still against the world. And then Aubrey decides she's going to try to possibly switch the game up a little bit. She goes and talks... Ooh, a wolf. She goes and talks to... Get a wolfie. She goes and talks to Ty and says, you know what, Ty? She's like, I like you, man. I don't think you belong with Scott and Jason. That is not your personality. That's not who you are. I know that. I see you better, and I want to see you go far. Let's work together on this, and you get rid of that dead weight, because they're not really dead weight, but you don't want to be associated with them, and we can make it so that they don't win if we do this. And Ty's thinking about it. He doesn't know what to do, but there's a reward or an immunity challenge in the meantime, which just was really cool. I think I've seen something that looked similar to it before, but not exactly that. You had these like these pots hanging from ropes, and you had to push these flat plates against a flat wall that were basically just at your arm's length, so you could just put your fingertips on it on each side and hold them there for as long as you could. And that was it. That was the whole challenge. And it looked freaking hard as hell. And it went on for some people for very, very short, and some people for a very, very, very long time. And some of the people it went on for a long time, amazingly, were Aubrey and Jason. Two people I did not expect to see going head-to-head in a challenge for as long as they did. It was pretty amazing to watch. And Aubrey ends up losing at the last second. I'm not sure how much longer Jason could have held on for. He looked like he was hurting at the end, but he was holding on for dear life because I think he knew he needed like that immunity, and he didn't want Aubrey to have it because Aubrey, Jason, and Scott are trying to get Ty to vote for Aubrey and get her out of the game. And their whole plan is to utilize the super idol if they have to save one of them so that Aubrey goes home. Knowing that the votes are all going for Ty. So for Jason and Scott, it's relatively easy to say because they can't be afraid that the votes are going to them because they've been made pretty confident that everybody's going to vote for Ty. But they're both straight up said, hey, we're going to save Ty so that we have the numbers together. But then they said amongst each other, Ty doesn't know this, that they're going to cut him loose. Because obviously Jason and Scott are trying to go to the end together. That would actually be a really cool matchup at the end too because I think they're both so hated that it would be the only thing that could make it a relatively even type of matchup because of the fact that they're so hated by everybody else. You'd be like, which one do I hate less? Who do I vote for? That would be like one of the few ways that it would be a good thing. Whereas if Ty gets to the end with Jason and Scott, Ty's definitely got the win, and they know that. So Ty doesn't know that they talked about this, but they talked about cutting Ty loose, and Aubrey's trying to let Ty know this, but that's their plan. And Aubrey ends up almost winning immunity, which would have thrown up their whole plan because they want to get rid of Aubrey for whatever reason. They think she's a good player. They think she's manipulative and smart, which she might be because she's the one trying to get Ty switched over to their side. But anyways, they go to tribal council with Jason having immunity. And before tribal council, Jason gives his idol over to Scott, who accepts his idol again. Ty already has his idol, but they don't put them together this time. They put them with two different people, which I found really interesting. And they go to tribal council, and they're doing all their stuff, and they're doing all their talking. And when it comes down to it, Ty ends up voting for Scott, and Scott is the one who is voted out. So Scott's just sitting there, and he looks at Ty, and he's like, well, the whole time when the votes are being read, Julia's whole thing is she doesn't want Ty to go home. Actually, this is a big thing I missed. She doesn't want Ty to go home. She wants to vote for Ty and make it known that she's voting for Ty to flush the idol because she thinks there's too many idols out there, and she needs idols to get flushed. And I think at this point they might still think that Ty has both idols because Ty was holding on to them both at one point. So her whole goal is everybody, let's vote for Ty. Let's let Ty know we're voting for him. So he has to play the idol, and then Scott will end up going home. This is the girls' plan because they're going to split the votes in a way that's what's going to be the outcome. So or are they trying to? I can't remember if they're trying to. Either way, they're trying to flush idols with this. So the whole time that they're right before Jeff reads the votes and he's asking if anybody wants to play their idol. Now Julia keeps looking at Ty. She's going, play your idol, dude. Play your idol. Play your goddamn idol, Ty. And I can't tell if she's doing it because she just wants the idol flushed so bad, or if she's doing it because she doesn't want to see Ty go home and she's so worried he's going to go home because he's not going to play the idol. I couldn't really tell if it was genuine concern or if it was concern over the idol being there. So nobody plays idols. Votes get read. Scott goes home. I still can't tell at this point if people know about a super idol or not, or if it's just the people who have the idols know about it. And so Scott's like looking at Ty, and he's like, give me the idol. And Ty's like just sitting there, and he's like, dude, you're not going to do it? Give me the idol. And he goes, no, I think I'm going to keep it. And people are like, dude, Jason's like, dude, you're not going to do it? And so Scott basically gets fucked, and he's like, wow. And he leaves. He goes home because he doesn't get the super idol together. Now, it's interesting because, for one, Ty does vote for Aubrey. So does vote for Scott. So Scott has 4 votes. Aubrey has 2 votes. Ty only has 2 votes when all is said and done because they ended up working their powers together to go against Scott is what Aubrey switched it up to. Only 2 of them on the outside voted for Ty, and I think that was because they still needed to have votes against Ty in case the idol was used. And then Scott got the 4 votes. Ty got 2. Aubrey got 2. Granted, Ty was supposed to vote for Aubrey, according to the Guys Alliance. He could have voted for Aubrey. Aubrey would have had 3. Scott would have had 2. Ty would have had 2. Aubrey would have gone home without, or no, excuse me, Aubrey would have had 3, Scott would have had 3, and Ty would have had 2. Is that right? I think that's right. And had the super idol had to be used on Scott, then Aubrey would have gone home. The fact that Ty voted for Aubrey changed all that. And what I think is funny is Jason and Scott were mad that Ty wasn't going to use the idol for Scott. I don't think they were counting the votes in their head to realize the fact that he voted for him at that particular moment. Maybe they did notice that already. So I'm surprised they were that shocked, because there's only 2 votes that went toward Aubrey when there were supposed to be 3 votes minimum that went to Aubrey, and there was only 2. So obviously it's Jason and Scott. Had Ty given him the idol to make the super idol for Scott to get saved, then it would have been a tie now between Aubrey and Ty. And therefore Ty ran the risk of going home. So that's what I would use as an excuse when all the votes got read. If Scott said that to me, he's like, dude, you're not going to give it to me. He'd be like, dude, if I give it to you, I'm on the chopping block to go home. That is a better excuse than just sitting there and saying, nah, maybe I'll keep it. I think Ty's going to get himself in a bad situation where he could have saved a little bit of face. Granted, it's not going to take you long to figure out who voted the other direction, because obviously Ty couldn't vote for himself. He must have voted for Scott. So they would have figured it out soon enough. So maybe it didn't matter. But I don't think Scott was even realizing the fact that he voted for him at the time. So I found that really interesting, and I'm really interested to see where this game goes, because now Jason's pretty much on the outside all by himself. Scott's gone, which I'm so happy about, because he was such an asshole who was making his way through the game. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens next week, because wow, what a good couple episodes of Survivor. Granted, I don't think we're ever going to get to see the super idol now, because Scott went home with an idol. I thought it'd be, so he went home with an idol in his back pocket, technically. I thought it'd have been interesting if at the beginning of that whole thing, what if Scott had actually just played his idol and not like saved it for the super idol for himself? How crazy would that have ended up being? Because then Ty would have had to play the idol. Wow, you know what? That could have changed the whole game. They could have just, instead of waiting for a super idol, dude, they almost should have done that. I wonder how much longer they can use the idol. I guess not in hindsight, sure they should have done that, because Jason already has immunity. If they want to work together as guys, Scott, use your idol, Ty, use your idol. Boom, we're going to sit here. Instead of waiting for the super idol when we still could have both the top 2 sets of votes, because it could have the top 2 sets of votes to Scott and top 2 sets of votes to Ty. One who uses super idol, the other was going home. Could have just both used the idol. All 3, you were safe during that tribal council. And then whoever you vote for goes home. That's the way it could have gone. I mean, granted, it went better than I thought, because Ty still has an idol now and is still in the game. So, anyways, guys, pretty good episodes. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Oh, let me do a prediction. I think they're going to get sick of Julia's shit because she's playing all different sides. I think that's going to save Aubrey some time. I think Aubrey is going to try to bring Ty to the end. They're going to team up, and I think Aubrey and Ty might make it to the end. We'll see. Hang tight, guys. See you in the next episode.